This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. I am Brett Endies, your host. We are on episode 34, and today is a special episode. We have our first guest here today, Robert Masters, a professional dog trainer who is originally from Kansas City. Now he's up in the Portland area. He's been doing great things. He's a personal friend, a good dog trainer, and we're gonna shoot the shit. Before that, as always, I want to take care of the business. I need you to subscribe to this podcast. I need you to rate, review, share with your friends. Send me some questions. Let's get interactive here. I want more people for this to help their dogs, more people to share this experience, with other dog owners. It helps people in the real world, so I really want to just share the information so it can help as many dogs as possible while I'm still able to put the information out there. With that, I want to get right into our first guest, Robert. Let's see here. Is he here? Let me get him all set up here on Skype. Okay, there he is. Robert, how are you?
Good, Brett. How are you doing?
Good. So welcome to the Dog Savant Podcast. So let's see, maybe if you want to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what do you do, what do you stand for? Give us the whole rundown.
Sure. So I have this typical story of most dog trainers. I adopted an aggressive dog. This was probably 6-7 years ago. I knew a friend from high school that had become a dog trainer, asked him for help, and then ended up doing an apprenticeship. And
where was this?
This was in Kansas City.
It was in Kansas City. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I just started working with my own dog, and he was like, you're pretty good at this. You could probably learn how to do this for other people and do better than what I was doing at the time, which was waiting tables and working retail jobs.
A real job sucks, man, right? It's so much better to not work for a living.
Yeah, and they don't pay very well, waiting tables.
No, man, I've had real jobs too. They suck.
Yeah. So, and then I just sort of picked it up. I apprenticed for maybe a year, and then started working and volunteering at rescues to kind of sharpen my skills and just get some more real world experience. Got bit a few times, of course. But I think my first gig was I was volunteering at a rescue and I was helping them out, and they were just like, do you want to train some of our adopters' dogs?
How long have you been working with dogs at this point?
I had just finished my apprenticeship, so a year.
Okay, cool. So you had some experience. I mean, how many dogs do you think you had handled at that point, besides your own dog?
Oh gosh, maybe not really all that many in a year, maybe 50.
Okay, and you were around other more experienced trainers learning and seeing them work with other dogs too.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, right on.
And I was reading a shit ton of books. I was reading The Monks of New Skeet.
What books were you reading?
The Monks of New Skeet, How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend.
Okay, yeah, they were one of my first ones. I used to watch their videos. I still have the original VHS tapes from when I was a young dog trainer.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I had the VHS from David Dykman, Command Performance.
Holy shit! How old is that?
That is old.
Shit. What did they sell that thing on late night TV or something?
Yeah.
I knew that. You know what? That name. I'm like, shit. Where have I heard that from? I knew it. That thing was going through in the 90s. I think that thing was circulating.
Yeah. Coincidentally, when I was living in Kansas City, I met this girl while I was working with a client, and she was training her dog, and I could tell by the equipment she had that she kind of knew what she was doing, or at the very least she had watched some good YouTube videos. And so I go and approach her, and I'm like, hey, just noticed your equipment, are you a trainer? Are you just following a lot of trainers on YouTube? And she goes, I'm sort of loosely apprenticing with a trainer around town. And I was like, oh, who is it? And she goes, it's David Dykman. And I was like, David Dykman? And I was like, Command Performance?
He was local to where you lived?
Yeah, he lived.
Holy cow.
This motherfucker lived half a mile from me.
Wow. All right. So what happened? So anyways, that's who did you work with him, or you just a coincidence that he happened?
It's a coincidence. I didn't end up working with him.
Okay. So wait. So now you got your first client about a year in. So you got them from the rescue you were working with?
I started teaching a group class at the rescue.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but the group class was going really well. Like the first one, there were like 5 dogs. And then, and like the class wasn't like a structured group class. It was like anybody can show up on Monday or Friday night for class.
Oh, it was like a drop-in thing for the public. Just like, was it obedience, problem behaviors? They deal with reactive dogs. Because a lot of those places, they'll kick the reactive dogs out if they don't have prior training, or some of those new trainers, no offense to you back then, but they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what to do when those dogs show up in their class.
No, I took that on. I took them all on.
Nice. Okay, good for you. Had the ball.
I would, of course, tell people that there are like inherent restrictions of like what a group class can cover. So I would always say like, we'll do what we can do in the context of a group class.
What kind of training were you doing then? Sorry to interrupt you, man, but what kind of training were you doing in that class back as a young Robert Masters dog training, who I know how you train dogs now to this day?
Yeah, I was doing very much the same thing I do now, like balanced dog training approach.
They let you do that there?
Yeah, they did.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at, is like, what did they let you do? Not so much.
Yeah, they let me. They started stocking pinch collars at the rescue. Like they actually were putting out Facebook like calls for people to donate pinch collars.
Good for them, those abusive bastards.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was actually like really freaking great. And the first class, like maybe 5 dogs.
I'm kidding, guys.
But it went really well. The second class had like 7. And then the next class was like 20 people showed up.
Now, was it a weekly thing or every month they did it?
Every Monday and Friday.
Twice a week. So it grew. Now, was that from like just word of mouth or just like?
Yeah, word of mouth. People were like sharing on Facebook, like, holy shit.
You were getting the job done.
I just took this group class and it's like a game changer.
Green Robert was getting it handled, man. Good for you.
Yeah. So the thing that was different back then was I used quite a bit of food, which I don't do that anymore. You
don't use any food now?
None. Every once in a while I will like use food in the sense of like let the dog see me prep the meal.
Oh, use their meal as like the ultimate reward.
And then I go like, the sooner you do 10 repetitions from place to heel, the sooner you get that food.
I understand that. We'll talk more about that in a moment here.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot to talk about when you use too much food and it goes awry, as we know about the current state of affairs in the dog training world.
We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll get into that. So anyway, I want to stay with it. So the first client, they came out of the group class and they hired you to now come to their house or somewhere to work with them individually?
Basically, I had somebody, the first thing started where somebody was in my class and they were like, we really like the class. We're not against it at all. In fact, we so like it, we just want your attention all to ourselves. So how much does it cost to have you come like work with us?
Did you have a fee structure set up at that point? Or you just like, I had no idea. You didn't expect it.
Yeah, and actually I had a plan. So I came up with an idea on the spot, which was I was just going to refer them to the person who I mentored with or apprenticed with. So I was like, that would be a fair way for me to repay him for helping me out anyway. So that was my plan. And I said, you should call this guy. He's great. He taught me. He does private lessons and all this stuff. And they go, no, we want you.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's the individual. It's hard, even if it's like they like you or they like your style. It's hard. It's why it's hard to hire people out, to work for your business. A lot of people want you. And look, you weren't that experienced compared to the people you wanted to recommend to, but you're the one they wanted. It's a good thing, but it's how it goes. It's more than just the skills.
I was like, $25? And they were like, done.
Go for it.
And so obviously I didn't keep that rate for very long. It's like that becomes unmanageable because I started figuring out like I had to quit teaching the group class within like 3 months because I was making way more money doing private lessons, even only charging $25. I was like filling my days with private lessons.
Spread quickly too then. Yeah. And you got the whole website, the business cards, the whole deal?
Yeah, then I started getting business cards, and that's actually where my business name came from.
What's the name of your business? Give a little plug. Tell everyone the name of your business and where they can find you, where you're located, what you do.
Sure. Dogs Listen to Me is the name of the business, based in Portland, Oregon. You can find me at dogslistentome.com and at dogslistentome on Instagram, facebook.com/dogslistentome.
You'll see me and Robert comment on each other's stuff sometimes. He's one of the few other dog trainers.
The name actually wasn't like a business name at first. It was just I was so like disgusted with like the state of the positive dog training thing.
Yeah.
That I was like, I don't even want to be a dog trainer. Like I don't want my card to say Robert Masters dog trainer. So I just had business cards that said Robert Masters, dogs listen to me.
Because you're advertising something that looks like the same service, like, oh, they're all plumbers, they all do the same plumbing, but this is so different in the dog thing. And it's, again, not just the personality or the individual, it's the style, the mindset, the psychological deficiencies of the handler. I mean, look, this is something me and Robert as friends, we talk a lot about on a personal level, that we're dealing with this, you know, not only like, well, these poor dogs are not being trained properly and the owners are getting misled by all the shit information online, but these people can sometimes come after the trainers who are actually helping the dogs out of their own mental illness, and they attack people, and they'll try to hurt their reputation, all out of the guise of humanity, when we're asking, well, where's your evidence? And all we're seeing is retrain case after retrain case of this style of purely positive, force-free, as if anything other than that is beating a dog or rolling up a newspaper, which is complete horse shit. You know, we're doing everything humane, but it's making sense to the dog as dogs in nature exist with a balance. And and you know, these people, what we've found out and what we've come together and circled the wagons now for what we've known each other for a good almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. It's because of, you know, a certain person really going after one of us or a lot of us, and opened our eyes. And then there's like the political climate starts going. We learned that there's just a certain type of people in the world who think a way that is just so off fucking kilter, it infiltrates anything good in society. And unfortunately, because animals can't speak for themselves, these people really dig in deep, and it's like they vilify anyone who's just speaking about reality on reality's terms. And these are people who haven't coped with that in their own psychological, you know, ways. So that's really what it comes down to. Sorry for to cut, you know, the diatribe here, Robert, but yeah, it really is, you know, this has to always be broken down and revealed and narrated. I said in my last podcast, people will comment on me like, what the fuck is he talking about? If what I'm explaining doesn't make sense, right, for whatever reasons, you may want to look within and see what's driving you to have such a knee-jerk reaction to what I'm most pointing out, matter of fact. Dogs are dogs, people are people, this is this, this is that. To sensationalize or be driven by emotion to create something that's not there, that's the definition of mental illness, because you're only seeing it from your one side of it, and you can't even tolerate something that's not your way, which is the extreme, you know, version of narcissism, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so amen to me, right? So anyway, with that, Robert, so, you know, so let's finish up about your initial start in your career, and maybe if you want to tell me your take on the purely positive, you know, and we'll share some stories. Maybe you can share some retrain cases and stories you've heard from clients so they can see that we're not making this up. This is just real trainers who are professionals paying their bills doing this year after year and seeing this get worse, and we're just stating the facts. We're not sensationalizing it or saying something out of our own opinion or for confirmation bias. We're just saying, hey, this is what we're seeing enough unrelated dog owners tell us in their living rooms, and this is all the purely positive creating this shit day after day.
Yeah, well, I live in Portland, which is like the mecca of social justice. And so, of course, they try to like, that tends to also work in favor of their dogs or against their dogs, as it were. So probably here, 90% of my clients have already been to a trainer. Now, I'm willing to be a little flexible, and like some of them were like puppy classes, but I mean, they don't know sit. And so I get retrains all the time. There's no like spectacular story. What I think is like a more interesting situation in the dog world now with the purely positive people is that I think there's like a moment happening, and I kind of think it's happening with like the political climate too.
A shift, right? Like a shift.
Yeah, it's sort of moving. It's
I
slow.
feel it
It's
too.
very slow, like underground, like budding move.
I see more people out in public like with hidden like training collars on their dog, like, and I'm like, oh, you found another good trainer. It's like, and you know what? These dogs are always the happiest, calmest, and the owners are just like, yeah, I get it. It's like, we're not going to feed into the collar shaming or the social, you know, graces here that people expect us to be with our dogs, kids, whatever. Yeah, no, I totally.
I was a little worried for a while because like the sort of spokespeople of the balanced, or at least not whatever non purely positive school you're talking about, for a while there was like there was this trajectory where like the spokespeople within the industry were sort of trying to like outcompete each other on who could sound the most positive
while still being balanced.
So it was just like bullshit.
Anyone with a half an intelligence can see through this.
Yeah, and I hated that, where it was like,
just tell dog owners the honest truth, because that's all they want.
Yeah, so you would see these things where it was like, you know, balance trainers picking on other balance trainers about like, well, that was too aversive. And sometimes there's a time to place for that. But this was more like when somebody who's like super progressive is trying to out progressive.
I was just going to say, I just saw a comedian the other night talking exactly about that. He said it's like Jenga, like you pull this, but this. He's like, and then, and it's too much. And then you turn on, it's like a snake with two heads. It ends up turning on itself.
But I think that movement that trajectory is dying.
People are pulling the curtain back on it. And people although not to cut you off, but people like Jeff and Larry, people, you know, they're not exactly balanced, but people who are just saying, no, dogs are dogs, we're putting out there, who give information, demonstrate the use of these tools that people, you know, find aversive or is abusive, whatever, and they're not backing off. That's a big reason too, I think. And I point my clients a reference to it. And these people, you know, we'll talk about the dog industry in a bit, but, you know, what they're doing, I really agree with. And I think that's a big part of it too. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. There's this not backing down factor. But you're even seeing it in like the packaging. Like it used to be, there's a certain trainer who wears lots of hats. And there was like all of this like really pretty packaging that was basically trying to be like, that was a nice way to tell the dog no. Like,
because he's smart. He knows how owners think and how the purely positive are going to try to nail him. Yes.
And so I think you're seeing less of that. I think you're seeing like videos that are going viral from dog trainers where it's like, what's her name? Becca in Washington.
Hammond. Yeah, Becca's great. She's awesome. Because she doesn't give a shit.
You're seeing
good for you, Becca, if you're watching this.
They use language, and it's like, fur babies, fur moms, you gotta stop it.
I know.
And it's like,
yep, good stuff.
That stuff is gaining more traction.
Because people are sick of it. They're sick of it.
So I think it's like really great. We have this like moment, and there's this like small group of dog trainers who are like keeping up with each other and like sharing each other's things and getting involved in conversations. I think it's like really freaking awesome. And I am seeing like less and less aversion to like tools and punishment and a reasonable approach. Like it used to be like, it used to be like I'd walk into a consultation and I'd be like, all right, the elephant in the room.
The collar.
Well,
it's the like, collar.
Yeah, I'm going to punish your dog. And then they look at you, you know? Now people go, thank you. That's what you're here for.
It's like I've had enough. It's like with the kids. A lot of people are like, all right, we don't have to beat our kids, but our kids have to hear no sometimes. They have to hear that their thoughts and values aren't always proper or correct. And there's other thoughts and values in the world that they have to entertain as well.
Yeah. And there's this other thing where it's like, there was this thing going around where it was like, if the positive people come after you, just ignore it. And you're like, no, that's their training method.
Well, we were afraid of getting our livelihoods tampered with.
Sure.
Because they're psycho. Like I said before, they go for the jugular. And now we're like, whatever. You know, especially, you know, once you get established because of their failed response, we're busier than ever, guys like us. We're too busy.
Yeah, when you and I met because of a certain individual,
right?
I was already said fuck it. Like by that point, I already had like 21-star reviews on my Facebook page from fake people. Like, but now I think more people are like fuck it, you know, and jumping on board and saying like, no, I don't have to like respect their stupid idea.
No, it works and it's helping dogs. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And it's not that their idea is just wrong. It's dangerous.
It's projecting such the opposite of what these dogs really need. And vilifying the people who are. That's the fucked up thing about it. Pardon my language, everyone.
Yeah, but we've got this like group of us that like are doing real talk. It's not like prettied up and like we're packaging it in the sweet selling way.
Well, look at your background, Robert. I mean, if we're gonna be putting it up and making it nice, we'd be putting a hat on you. I'd be doing something here, making it right. No, we're talking about, frankly, what the hell is going on here in the reality, because we're the ones sitting in dog owners' living rooms day after day after day. That's why.
It's cool. So I think it's like,
Yeah.
I was telling you a couple weeks ago, like I wanted to like sort of parody like in the political sphere, the intellectual dark web movement. We have like the intellectual dog web.
Well, it's starting right here in this podcast, buddy. Seriously. Let's keep talking this shit, dude. This is important stuff, man. It has to get out there.
And it's spreading. Like, I mean, you know Peter. He keeps growing.
Long live Peter Kane.
You gotta get him on the show at some.
We'll get him on. Look, you're my first guest, but we'll get more guests on here if this goes well. Yeah, we'll get Peter on if he agrees. Look, it's nothing's up to anyone. It's always up to Peter, right?
That's true.
We have no say in this. If he decides, he decides the day, the time, and if at all. That's how it goes. And if so, we appreciate every minute he gives us.
That's true.
He's a star. He's a superstar to me. If some people don't agree, to me, he's a superstar, and he speaks truth.
Hell yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does.
I think the positive people are like finally losing. You know, I think that they're fading out. People are, at least I understand people's initial instinct to try it. Like when you have your dog and you're like, okay, we need a trainer, and somebody is like, we're gonna do it all positive.
We love our dogs. No one wants to hurt their dog, but you're not supposed to hurt your dog. You're supposed to lead your dog and give him direction and rules and structure. That's it.
So, but I think people are waking up to it quicker. Like, I will say, like, a lot of my clients that come from another positive trainer come from the local humane society. They do like training.
They all do, because they've got to be politically correct to get donations and people to come adopt their pets.
For sure.
Yeah.
And but a lot of them now are like quitting sooner. Like I'm getting a call after they've gone twice, as opposed to it used to be we went to a positive trainer and we went 20 times. And
I've heard years, dude. And many multiples, vet behaviors with the medication shit, those things they put over their head, everything to avoid the reality of what's going on. And first of all, how many of your new cases nowadays do you think percentage-wise are retrained from purely positive trainers? 90%. I'm getting to a good 60 to 70% on average, and I'll see 20, 30 or more cases a week consistently. And all these people, are they not telling you, and again, I'm not front-loading this question, but are these people not saying, dude, within minutes, you're making this dog respond and seem more relaxed, happy, less anxious? In that few minutes of first meeting us and jumping in and handling the situation properly, than the 20 sessions or whatnot, or many trainers in the past have done combined.
Absolutely. I had a client once with a blue heeler, and she had gone every Saturday for 2 years to a trainer for leash reactivity. They were working on BAT training, behavioral adjustment training.
And then they give these nicknames and cutesy. It's just a fucking dog. Understand conditioning, the elements of leadership. Give a system to create structure and organization in the home and on the walks, and you're good to go. Stop with the gimmicks, man. It's just for selling. It's all marketing, man.
Yeah, and so this is 48 times. This is almost 100 classes this woman has gone to.
Week after week after week.
And so I'm like, and so she meets me, and she expresses like interest in the fact that I have a very well behaved dog with me, and she's like, "Can you, like, how do you do that?" And I explained to her, I'm like, "Well, he was trained on a pinch collar, blah blah blah." And she's like, "I'm really not so sure about the pinch collar." And I was like, "Well, worst case scenario, we try it once, you hate it, and there you go." And so put the pinch collar on the dog, we do some focus work, and we walk past a dog, and her dog doesn't react. We haven't even corrected it for lunging at another dog yet. We've just taught the dog to pay attention on the leash.
You didn't hurt it, you didn't choke it, you didn't snap its neck or nothing like that.
I let the dog hit the end of the leash like 3 times on its own.
It just knew by instinct that made more sense why it could relax on the walks.
Yeah. And so here we are. I'm like, and she's like, "Well, I will say your $100 was really good, but their classes are cheaper." And I'm like, "Yeah, if you have to take one, but if you have to take 100, does it really? Now it's not cheaper. I just saw
time too. It's a lot of time spent. A miserable dog day after day.
Yeah, and so she had already, like, by this point, $2,000 just in going to these stupid bat classes.
They don't work. And it's not to say, and look, I do use treats from time to time. I'm pretty much 75 to 80% non-treats, but for puppies shaping behaviors, I always say it's to kind of improve behaviors or concepts, or when a dog is showing the behavior we want to replace the negative ones that they started with, we'll do that once in a while just to give them a little bonus, you know, but they're working all day for their paycheck. They show up to work, the house is the office, humans run the company, their paycheck is their food, resources, shelter, you know, and then we make sure we give them the right order and things they need throughout the day, exercise, attention, but it's all timed and on our terms in the right order. Otherwise, these dogs who obviously were coming in after the fact that these problem behavior habits have been formed, we have to be so strict and so consistent. That's why it is training the owners. But we're also, as non-positive reinforcement people, we're honest enough with ourselves and them to talk about uncomfortable subjects with the owners and don't have to come in with unicorns and roses and be like, hey, this is the reality. Like you said, I'm gonna punish your dog. I'm gonna tell them no. I'm gonna tell them what's up. They're gonna have a tantrum when we first put a training collar on. Some dogs don't listen as well as the one you just described. But your dog's not gonna die. And on the other end of this, and within minutes usually, your dog's gonna have the rest of their life back as a dog and not feel over responsible for every little fucking twitch that goes on in the home environment or when you're out on the walk in social situations. And these people who think positive purely, even the way I'm speaking right now, I'm aggressive, I'm this and that. I hear the way they talk. It's really because everything in them is emotion and they don't see it factually as we're talking in reality. And again, we're just narrating the facts. We're not saying, but we this and this is the sign. We're saying this is what other people have told us and they keep wanting us to come back. I usually always start this podcast talking about that, like, well, what qualifies me? Because, oh, you know these assholes. Well, who makes you a dog expert? Aside from, well, somehow I'm feeding myself and my family for all these years, I have all these unrelated people telling me the same thing over and over. So if it's working for them, I want to share the information in the virtual world to help more dog owners, despite all of the, you know, these people who think this way, who can't handle reality. It's all that comes down to. This is not a dog issue. It's not a training tool issue. It's a psychological issue that panders to the emotions of human owners that are innocent in this, but the trainer should be self-aware enough to know better. That's what this is.
I like now, I have a new strategy, which is like, I like to walk in and just immediately like start laying out a list of things that'll tell me if you're going to be an owner that can handle this. And so I just try to like shatter dreams. So I'm like, okay, right from the get-go.
Pre-qualifiers.
What does owners always say? They always go, I know he wants to please. And I go, let's just get rid of that myth right now. Your dog has no interest in pleasing you unless it benefits him in some way. And people look at me like shocked. And I go,
because you're telling the blunt truth because you see what's going on. You just know.
But everybody thinks their dog wants to please. And I go, where do you think that drive comes from in nature? It doesn't exist. He only wants to please because when he pleases, he sometimes gets something.
Yeah, like a drug addict. That's all it is. He'll be your friend till the drugs run out.
That's my first uncomfortable truth.
Dogs are animals of opportunity. They don't want to admit that.
Yeah, and it's like, he doesn't love you. He likes you enough, but love is complicated. So let's just get that out the window.
It sure is, buddy.
And then it's just go down the line of like just destroy their beliefs, where they're just like, these like silly notions, you know. And whenever somebody challenges me, that's my favorite. They'll be like, he does love me, and I go, if you die alone in this house with him, he will eat you.
Well, actually, I have one client who told me they rescued a dog where the dog died in the house for like I think it was like 3 or 4 days and did not eat the person. Not the dog, the owner died and the dog was left. It was his friend, so he knew the story well. And I was like, I have to, because he told me a story. I'm like, you know what the question is I'm going to ask you? He's like, what? I'm like, did she eat him?
And
it'll take some time. If they can access their kibble first.
They don't go for it right away, no, but even then, like, it didn't have kibble, but I think it would have to be like really, I guess depending on the dog and I think a little bit the relationship, but I think the dog would have, but the dog, I think it would take a lot more for a human in their moments of starvation and realization of it than it would for a dog to eat their that's probably a good way to describe it, right? Still give the dog some civility. Okay.
Not all dogs necessarily. I'm not so sure Jarvis would eat me. I think Jarvis would just like eat pins or something. Like Jarvis would start eating edibles. But that's only based on when I feed him a raw diet, and he's like nitpicky. He slowly eats it apart. So he's like almost too soft to like.
Do you have Jarvis nearby? Is Jarvis there?
He's not. He's out in the other room right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all love Jarvis.
But I do enjoy like coming in and just shattering people's, and then like, or being like, okay, new rules. You're going to the pet store. They're going to ask you if you can give the dog if they can give the dog a treat. You're going to tell them no.
Like, the outside people are the worst once you get the owners on board.
Yeah. So, but I love doing that. And they're like, wait, why am I going to tell them that they can't give him a treat? And I'm like, you don't need him to be excited at the pet store. That's the time when he needs to be the most calm. And they just like, you just blow people's minds. But I do feel like people are more receptive to it now.
And the results will let them listen to you as long as you're not hurting their dog in the process and they see their dog is having a better quality of life and more inconvenient for them as the owners.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell people, like, that's the other thing. I was like, back when we had this trajectory where even balance trainers were trying to like compete for who's the softest balance trainer. So they'd be like, the e-collar is just a tap. And I go, it can be just a tap. But I don't know that that's an apt description of its entire use most of the time. Like, definitely the collar wouldn't work if there wasn't some degree of discomfort, right?
Especially when you're resolving strong drives or the aggressions.
Sure,
if it is for that, if it's I don't use them in many contexts, but when I do use it, sometimes you do turn it up to a level that I would assume wouldn't feel great. There are some times.
Like I put one on my neck on 100. It's not traumatizing.
It's not fun. No, and I've had dogs where like my Rottweiler, I did some more off leash proofing with it. I was like on 6 with him under most conditions, and that you wouldn't register with a human if you touched it on 6. Where other dogs I've had where it's either because they want to chase a squirrel too strongly, and we've done a lot of consistent work with the leash, or they, there's an aggression, and we find that with the collar you can correct it. You turn it up beyond their adrenaline that's pumping, so they could actually respond and feel it, and then you time it well, and they get the memo. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I actually have like an informal. My friend David and I. David's another dog trainer in Kansas City, and he and I have an official policy that we don't refer to them as e-collars anymore. I mean, sometimes I slip into it, but my official policy is to refer to it as a shock collar, because I refuse to let the positive reinforcement trainers make me afraid to describe something in a way that people understand.
That's where it came from, right? Like e-collar, because it's a gentler way to say the name of it.
Yeah, but then an owner goes, "What's an e-collar?"
Electronic collar.
Or a vet goes, "You mean the phone?" Because that's called an e-collar too. So my official policy is now when I do a consultation, I'm like, if you want to do off-leash training, we're going to do that with a shock collar. And I'm like, I don't dwell on it. Because I don't want to bullshit people.
And you have enough clients where the next one will not make you have to bullshit anymore because we're getting the job done and the dogs are fine.
Yeah. I just got tired of this bit. Here's how it used to go. We're going to use an e-collar. Oh, what's that? It's an electronic collar. And they go, oh, like a shock collar? And I go, yeah, like a shock collar. So now I just say, fuck it. It's a shock collar.
Right to the point. Fuck it.
Yeah. I don't need to trick you with pretty flowery language, which is also oh, fuck. Flowery language is a huge beef I've got. Rescues, when you see the sign for the dog and it's Huey Huey loves people so much, he wants all of your attention to himself.
They humanize it.
And then what that means is Huey is incredibly dog aggressive.
And probably has separation anxiety because clings to you every damn move when you're around the house.
Yeah. So, or it's Huey lacks socialization, meaning Huey wants to kill other dogs. Thank you.
The best are the ones that have dogs like that, and then they only let the adoptees only allow purely positive training, no collars, You know, and these people like wonder why these dogs bite someone or come back and get returned.
I've started making sure, like when I got clients from like the Humane Society here, which, man, dog adoption is huge here. But it's a fucking joke because they all have this contract. And so now if they say, like, I got my dog from the Oregon Humane Society, I'm like, technically you signed a contract that says you can't work with me, and I just don't want you to have trouble for it later. And most people are like, fuck them. So that's
then I mean, I hear like I have clients who, like, they go to like these agility groups in addition to the training we're doing, and they're like, they don't let me use the pinch collar or even the star mark collar, which is a piece of plastic, because I was like, but they don't even know what they're talking about. These people feel so self-righteous, and I'm like, can you do what we do? They can't handle or fix the problems that we're fixing.
No.
We're not. I don't know. I don't alpha roll dogs. I don't kick them. I don't use. I don't think you either use bonkers and things that you hit dogs or throw chains and shit like that. I don't shake cans or throw things at a dog. I lead a dog. I'm a step ahead of them. I create strategies and game plans for our relationship and the day that we share in the environments, and make sure they have a full life, proper nutrition, exercise, health, leadership, rules, boundaries, and training. And most dogs don't seem to have problems when that's the norm. And when you have that take, even though some problems have formed over time, even with an adult dog, it's just like a rehab. You just got to have it be consistent, more adhere to it. But it still can be you can replace all these behaviors but the owners have to change, and that's very challenging for some people. Because you're saying you have to be blunt to the point, because I'll bet you have some people, because for you it's a test. It's like, oh, I can tell by the look in their eye or what they say how this is going to go right away by their response to me being right to the point with them. And I know if it's going to be a case I'm going to work with or not. And it's not that you want to be a jerk. You want to help every dog and owner, but some people you just know because you're experienced enough. That's what I do too. I have people, I'm like, look, I'm here to help you, but I already see where this is going, and if we don't get our arms around all these lingering issues, I'm zeroing in on like the fucking Terminator, scanning your environment with your dog, your house, and the chaos going on. We're done for day one. I can tell you, and you can't send your dog off to me either to help, because that's just gonna make your dog listen to me or feel, woof, at least I don't gotta worry about that shit when I'm at your house. That's all it's gonna come down to. So unless these board and trains, they gotta heavily follow through with the owner, or there's very little improvement when the dog comes back. Yeah, so, all right. But yeah, that's that. Was there any other points you wanted to make on that? Sorry, man, I got my ADD kicks in. I'm like these dogs. I get like all of them out sometimes. You know me.
I think we're good. Although you did mention at one point, just a small pet peeve is the every person you go to their consult or whatever you talk to on the phone or on the email, and they're like, we rescued a dog. And it's like, that's the other one I like to dispel right away. They go, so we rescued her. And I go,
you're such amazing.
Tell me about that. And they go, we went to the Humane Society. And I go, oh, so you adopted her.
You correct it right there.
Yeah, I'm like, no. The people somebody rescued her and then put her up for adoption, and you adopted her, which is still good, but you didn't rescue the dog. So just go ahead and deflate that ego a little bit. You essentially showed up and bought a bargain bin dog. Now, that's not to say that your dog's not good, and I think you should go rescue, but don't pump up your ego. And then, especially in these like sort of trendy cities where it's like you see somebody with like a golden doodle that they bought, and then you see somebody with their like mutt, which I love mutts. My dog's a mutt, but you see them and they're like, oh, well, we rescued ours. Yeah, no, you basically did the same thing, just less selectively.
Exactly. It's a dog, and it's good for any dog. It's just take the ego out of it, because it's going to help you train your dog and not sensationalize yourself or your dog, which is good for human problems too.
Yeah.
Because you have to be very self-aware when you're training a dog. Especially if the dog has problems, you got to look at how your dog perceives you in the relationship. My feeling, or even the people that feel bad because of the dog's history, or the rescues, or somebody say the dog was abused. This dog wasn't abused. No one taught this dog rules or manners. Some are, and it's horrible, but even then, why would we project the past? I says this dog is not getting abused for the rest of its life. It's living in Bel Air in a $10 million mansion, let's say, which is literally some of my goddamn, you know who my clients are. And I was like, Jesus, dude, like, okay, I get it. We feel bad, and we're not going to beat the dog for being scared of this, that, or reacting to the, all these things in life. But we've got to build this dog up and get it to deal with life on life's terms, or you're just going to be coddling the problems to conditioning these things till they just never resolve.
Yeah, I think people, first of all, I think abuse is diagnosed way too much.
It's a lot of dogs just didn't learn rules, or the dogs were too much to handle and they got passed from home to home. And I'm not minimizing it's a problem, because, hold on, we got a timeout here. I'm doing a timeout, Robert, because a lot of people are going to hear these words. Some assholes will probably try to cut it out if they really get a hold, and they're going to think, oh, these guys are cowards. They think dogs aren't abused. No, it's horrible. There's dogs that are in the meat factories and in China and Korea. I get these cases. But most of them are labeled by rescues as that because it's easier to adopt it. Maybe for good altruistic reasons they're doing it. And even if it was abuse, it really doesn't affect how you're going to approach training if you're dealing with issues in the dog. But we're just speaking frankly that really it's not always that. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, it's not always that. And it's like almost everybody I meet with a dog they got from a shelter starts somewhere in the conversation with, we think she might have been abused. And I'm like, all right, just statistically speaking, you're probably looking at more like neglect, which is bad, but like not the same. It's not the same. And so I just think that's a huge pet peeve, is like the abuse assumption that just gets tossed around. I think most of the dogs, especially if it's like fearful, I'm like, most of it is because the dog was never shown not to be afraid, and all you did was coddle it and validate its fear, and all the rescue people did was coddle it and validate its fear. And so yeah, he's afraid, and now the second somebody steps in and goes, come on, we're going, the dog's a little scared. But
they put on the brakes sometimes. They freak out. They could really have a dramatic visceral reaction, and you have to work them through it. You can't succumb to it when your dog's being the emotional being in this situation. You've got to stay neutral, stoic, and self-aware to know what steps to take to work the dog through it. And it's usually not by coddling them or feeding into your emotions. Yeah.
Although also going to what you were talking about with like the dogs, like maybe my least favorite email to get, and I get a few of them, is we rescued our dog from a meat farm in Korea.
I get those, yeah.
Fucking A. First of all, those dogs are super fucked up usually. But second of all, I'm like, why are we wasting resources on that? And also, again, with the owner, I'm like, get off your high horse unless you're a vegetarian. If you eat meat, the dog is no different than eating a cow or a pig. Arguably, a pig is smarter.
To these cultures, yeah. I personally wouldn't eat a dog, but in those cultures it is, because, again, I eat meat hamburgers, and I guess in certain countries that would be seen exactly the same or more, because they're seeing like they're spiritual beings. We just see dogs as family members.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, like, I wouldn't eat a dog, but to go, they eat dogs, that's horrible. But then you, like, chow down on your, like, fucking pork chop, that's not cool.
Oh, look, I post my hunting stuff, and I get all types of things, And I'm not a trophy hunter. I eat the shit that I would be hunting, but people, it's a mindset that I get, the humanity that they're thinking, but it drives people to not help dogs. And it's like, I wake up every day helping animals. That's how I earn my feed, and I've sacrificed a lot to be in a position to actually make a living doing it. I didn't have clients all day long when I first started. I've struggled, my backstory. And like, I'm like, Jesus, for you to judge when you're waking up and being a teller at a bank or whatever you do, good for you. You have to pay your bills too, and I support you and don't have any judgment. But don't judge me when I'm living the life, because I'm more matter of fact. Like a lot of these hunter people who are really like I do my website to hunter. You know why I chose them? Because hunters are some of the most solid stand-up people, especially archery hunters who are in tune with the animals and nature, and it's so different. They're not this fucking drunk hillbillies. These are spiritual, intelligent people, and they get all this. I look at the posts, and usually there's people supporting of it. There's all the people who have and they can't even just say, well, just please let me try to understand why you hunt, like in a cool way. They'll ask out of, opposition. But no, they go right to the, you're evil, you're this. I had one person, because I was shooting a foam deer, a 3D target. It's a fake deer that you shoot with a bow and arrow, telling me that how could I be humane to dogs because I shoot a foam target? I'm like, But I'm saying like this is, yeah. So.
Oh man, they'd hate me because I was talking to somebody the other day.
But
if I was in Korea, I think I would eat dog.
If it was part of your culture and how it was, I guess that's what you do. I mean, you can't judge it. It's like you have to.
I'm saying I would do it now. Like if I took a vacation to Korea and they offered me some dog soup, I'd probably give it a try.
I wouldn't. That I wouldn't do. Everyone, I can't do that. I'm going to have to that's why I take one step back from Robert, admittedly, being a puss that I am. I couldn't do that. I just couldn't. That's where look, I have my emotional limitations too. I'm aware of when I pull my bullshit on myself. But Robert's being purely objective. That's why I'm not judging him. I understand though how we're, right. You're not getting off on it. It's just what you would do. It's a
one of my goals is to like have a small farm with like lambs and goats and sheep, and I would be raising them as sort of, livestock, but they'd be like pets.
You'd see them every day and feed them and care for them.
And I would still want to eat them.
Yeah.
So I figure, why does dogs have to be any different?
You're not torturing them to eat them. You'd eat them. And these dogs, again, they come into the situation from the dog meat, even they were in a cage, whatever the case may be, and you build them back up and make them learn how to be dogs. Not, because now they're part of your family. So you don't have to project, oh, you poor thing, you were meat. And this, well, you're not meat because you're living in Beverly Hills. And that's, you have to kind of objectively, this would teach them matter-of-factly not succumb to the emotions.
I think it's the least we can do is ask this dog not to drag you down the street, because you provide him a beautiful house with 4 walls and a roof and food. Like
better than most of the world lives as far as humans.
Yeah, your dog lives better than they live in Venezuela.
Most places. More creature comforts.
Yeah.
In Venezuela, humans are eating rats. Your dog, meanwhile, eats $100 a bag dog food.
Yep. Top medical care. Yeah, it's crazy.
That was my slight little jab at socialism.
That's fine. Go for it. No, Rob's got to, if you're really into political stuff, follow Rob. I don't really poke many sticks at it. I just joke because I love sitting back and watching how people get into it with Rob. Because I love Rob. Rob, I'm loyal to him for life because he stuck up for us when no one else would. And he's just a good dude and a good dog trainer. Again, I see how people like post judgment on you. I'm like, I know Rob, he's a good dude. He's a solid guy. You can trust him. He's loyal. He's consistent. He's aware. Like, why? Because he doesn't say what you want to fucking hear. That's a big problem in the world right now.
So it's huge.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I like how you go at it. And look, you're still doing what you do and you're helping dogs. And that's the thing is, I heard like a lot of, like I'm in Hollywood, right? And a lot of these actors have to really play this game really well, but like certain people, like certain comedians, people like me, people who just have businesses where like we're doing a good service that's in demand, we can be ourselves more and speak freely, and people are like, well, it's like almost like we don't live in as much fear. You live in less fear than I do because I got a goddamn show on Facebook I'm waiting for season 2 for. But really, it's good for you and good for just speaking out about the dog training stuff to any other trainers that are either putting their stuff out there and not talking about the other side of the fence, or people who are pulling the curtain back on them. And it doesn't have to be us versus them. It's like, look, this is the facts. This is reality. This is what we're seeing in the real world as professionals doing it. And we're hearing that the other kind of training is not failing. And we've already figured out how to dissect the psychology that's making this kind of training, or people think that kind of training works, and even when they're seeing it fails, they don't back down. Like they're the Terminator, like they just keep coming and coming. But like you said, they're going away, and once it goes away, it's gone, or at least it balances out again.
Yeah, I think we're on a pendulum swing. I'm sure it'll come creeping back in, but hopefully we'll enjoy like this time of like prosperity with dogs being treated like dogs, and should be good. I think we're in good times.
I hope so, and I tell people I don't want to be as busy as I am. There's too many dogs to go around. That's why we're doing this online stuff, and just to try to help more dog owners that aren't local to us or have the shit trainers or no trainers nearby. To complement.
I'm actually about to take on an apprentice because I can't keep up now.
Yeah, I want it too, but people want me. It sucks. But it doesn't suck. I'm on touch, but it's hard because sometimes it's like enough accumulated experience. It's challenging to, kind of pass it on to someone who's also going to be able to deal with the clients that you. Anyway. That's why I want to keep doing more online stuff, so I can, with the time, get more of a message out to, even the few people that might be seeing these things.
Well, all your stuff's been awesome.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks, dude. You've always been a good supporter. You're a friend, and that's, that was the one thing I wanted to just kind of touch on while we're talking. The dog training community, not all of us get along, not all of us support each other. You see, I mentioned a lot of people who either don't acknowledge which is fine, I don't need their validation, but I do know that what they do is helping. And even just, people that might not like what I'm saying or not like my personality, or I've made some jokes, or I have a show and people get jealous, which means really nothing because I'm still just a dog trainer like anyone else. I'm just trying to spread a more balanced message to a greater audience, which really, so, it's good. I want to get more of the trainers on, more of the people who have been consistent, supportive, have a pure message, because I find there's a relationship between a lot of good trainers and just a good, solid personality, and, and just sharing that with more people. That's why, even Bill Church. I don't know if I was on his podcast, and same thing. He's getting, a lot of people. I'm not technically, know or anything, but just good information and just shooting the shit of the trainers. So that was my little sentimental moment to end on there. But I love Robert. Robert's great. So here, yeah, man. So anyway, why don't you tell us where we can find you online, any other places, YouTube channels, Facebook, anything that you got going on, anything else you want to share, anyone you want to say hi to?
Definitely.
Go for it.
Dogslistentomeme.com, at dogslistentomeme on Instagram and Twitter, youtube.com/dogslistentomeme, facebook.com/dogslistentomeme, and that's it.
Cool. Thanks, man. So good talking to you. I'll have you on again soon. All right, man?
All right. And so is this officially the Intellectual Dog Web episode?
We got it going, man.
All right.
Have a good night, my man. Later.